Hello, everybody. Welcome to another fabulous It's Me, Not You podcast episode. Today, we're going to be talking about the physical and mental effects of the work that we do and how it can kind of affect us even after the healing session is completed. So I kind of want to start with Melissa, because she was just talking about this before we hopped on. Melissa, why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of what you've gone through and the physical and mental effects of the work that we do, and what's it like for you? It sucks. No.
No, it's very rewarding, but people only see like the sunshine part of it. And yes, we are a vessel and the messages are not for us. And a lot of times I feel like Men in Black, like I don't get to remember it. It's just whoop, I wear a medicine bag and once that's off, I'm done. Or I blow up my candle, I'm done.
Wait, I'm gonna stop you real quick. Jake, is that the same for you? Because it's not for me. I remember pretty much all of it.
I think it depends. Sometimes I might not always have specific details, except sometimes when it's really heavy stuff, sometimes I find myself having to kind of like lean. You know how like you're always kind of like separate, you've got your
like
mind over here.
From it.
Right.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to lean in a little bit, or I find myself leaning in a little bit more, and maybe that's why I just absorb a lot of it too. Especially just when it becomes to like, oh.
Go ahead, Melissa. Sorry.
Well, and it's no, you're fine. We're jumping.
This is gonna be what we do. I cut you off. I cut you off.
So I don't get to remember everything about it, but when it is really serious, I do. And I also believe that when we're channeling or mediumship, that my body holds the memory of the message, even if my brain forgets. So I will, we have all these tools that we use, washing our hands in salt water. I mean, sometimes it's so rough, I have to do the egg over my head kind of a thing to get rid of it. But there's so much trauma that's out there. And for me, I let spirit show me like, okay, how did you die? Show me in my body, like squeeze my heart, and I'll feel something like that, but when you read for somebody who's been murdered or trauma, it's just like, ugh, and trying to get that out of your system or even your cellular system. So I go for energy work twice a month just to try to get out those imprints of the things, whether I remember them or not.
Mm-hmm. What about for you, Jake?
Jesus, somebody just
the physical effects of the work,
right? Not throat chakra.
His throat.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, depending on the nature of the sessions, and it's interesting too, because I find that it's positive and negative. Sometimes if it's a really beautiful session, I am like elated. I'm like on cloud nine for the rest of the day, and it's like really charging for me, and then every once in a while, just if it gets a little bit, I'll say, more of like shadow workish, then I find myself having to really be quiet afterwards. And I will say that after like a full day of sessions, I always have ceremony at the end of the day to do clearing work, to do that releasing, to send energy back, to take back my power too, I don't know. It's very interesting. A lot of times you have to do like affirmations for me personally and be like, that's not mine. I can release that. I can let go of that. But I think it's one of you just said that, and it stuck something in the back of my head. It's like the body keeps the score. When you are doing the channeling work, whether that be mediumship or even just intuitive work too, you are sitting with this person's energy or with multiple people's energy. So the good, the bad, the ugly. And so in a way you feel like you're carrying that with you. I find it carries in my shoulders, in my head, in my neck, my physical body. I'll be so lethargic sometimes. Even just kind of like every once in a while, I'll go in a really interesting direction, like in the psyche too. It's almost it can kind of be like a storm cloud that kind of comes over you, and you're like, why am I in such a funky mood? I don't understand. And then you'll remember, oh, because I didn't do the clearing work. I didn't separate myself enough during that session. I didn't put my boundary down, and now I'm kind of paying the price for it. Yeah. So, and then you rebound in different ways. For me, it might be that I have to take like a day off, have to just take a day off and just disconnect completely. It's different. I don't have like a single way of dealing with it every single time, but I do always say that so important to hold ceremony and hold sacred space for yourself before and after. You know, psychic hygiene is so important.
Oh, absolutely.
I will say that I really try to manage my schedule well, because I know how much it takes out of me. And I try not to book a lot of things in one day. Like if I know I'm going to a shop and I'm doing readings there, I won't do anything else the rest of the day, and I'll kind of chill, go home. And I do like I do try to, like, kind of like what you're saying, the psychic hygiene of anything that I borrowed from you, I return back. Anything that you borrowed from me, I take back. So
Hmm.
just kind of like making sure that energetic exchange is balanced. But there are times when, and I think for both of you, you've definitely experienced this, like you'll be doing a reading and something super heavy will come through, and it will kind of bring up flashes of trauma that you've gone through, that it's like, oh, this is a lot of energy that's coming in this session, and how can I balance it? Like for me, my brother committed suicide. So whenever suicides come up, it's always like this, and then it's, and it's hard because it brings up the trauma of that event. But then it's like, me as the reader, I have to channel that energy and to that person receiving the message, that they're getting the highest and best message, and I'm not clouding it with my own ego, my own trauma. But then I feel like, I don't know about for you guys, but sometimes I feel like I pack it away, and then it's like when that energy clumps up on your body and gets stuck in your cellular tissue, and then it's like I have an energetic go on.
Yes.
You guys don't like
And
my sound effects? Come on.
I actually love your sound effects, and you made a couple earlier that I actually thought that you like had a soundboard in the background, and it made me giggle just so much. But yeah, to your
Don't, guys,
point,
it's just me. All right, I'm just that good. No, I'm just kidding.
I also even think that
Weird.
I even just like think that it's always like a consistent task of having to like do that healing work for yourself and make sure that you have done it enough for yourself with your past perspective,
Yeah.
whether that be family experiences, your own personal experiences, because I have found, especially early on in my career, the things that I did not heal, I was resistant to in session, you
Like
know,
that.
and every once in a while I call it, you know, ego, the little shoulder goblin, you know. It's this little goblin that likes to just grab you in those low moments, and it likes to trick you into being like, oh, remember that thing that happened, here it goes again. Likes to trick you into thinking, because you know there's that saying that, you know, sometimes things come back around to reteach you a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
I find that the shoulder goblin is a little bit more cruel than that.
Mm-hmm.
And likes to throw things up in your face, not because there's a meaning or a message behind it, but just to trick you, to take a couple steps backwards, you know?
Ooh, yes.
So there's always this psychic juggling that we have to do. You know, even on our rest days, our recuperating days, there is some gymnastics that's happening too. So it's an interesting, I love that this dialogue is happening, because I mean, at some point, even at our quiet moments, we're still on and working,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And definitely not taking from anyone's trauma, like, and what I'm saying, I know that they went through it, and I can only imagine, like, I'm only feeling a tiny bit of whatever it is that's being shared. The hard part that happens is when you're reading for like 6 people, they might have 2 or 3 on the other side. So you're getting like 18 people's stuff,
Right.
whether it's
Yeah.
heavy or light or I'm sorry or forgiveness or I mean, sometimes they're just hysterical, and like you said, it's a blast. Like there are some of those parties that I do remember, like the grandmothers that get really going. But yeah, it's hard because we care. We're not doing this for, I mean, of course we're doing this for entertainment purposes only, but
We're in New York State. Thank you for that.
yeah. So, but at the same time, we care. We're doing it because we want to help people and we want to help spirits.
And we want to provide healing.
Yes, it's
Healing,
all. That's
empower, cathartic
core.
message.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever watch that? Jake, you may not have. Melissa, you may not have. You're like, did I watch that Tyler Henry show? Did anyone watch the Tyler Henry show? I know he's a pretty famous
Snippets.
medium psychic. And the last season, he was actually like hospitalized because of the mediumship work that he does and the physical effects that it had on his body. And for us, I mean, I felt validated and like, okay, it's not just me that needs to learn how to balance. That's my Southern accent kicking in. Balance my, yes, guys, I'm from Georgia. Okay.
Wait till my
Yes, y'all, I'm from Georgia. I'm a Georgia peach, and it's my channeling. Now I'm all distracted. Sorry, with my amazing, awesome.
No, but you're right. It does have
It is a
physical.
physical
Like you're
effect.
saying,
Go
it
ahead.
does. I gotcha.
Take it, take it, Melissa.
Well, and it's hard. It is hard for us to say no, and
Yes.
it's something that we work on because they are called our spiritual gifts, because we do really value them and we try hard not to take any of it for granted. And for me, it was tough, and I get burnt out around Christmas time.
Yeah, all that emotion.
Because I feel like I'm not trying to sound ego, but I feel like I am an operator to heaven. You know, I'm the phone operator.
Yeah.
And how can I say no to people who are hurting because they want to connect? You know, let's face it, a lot of people die around the holidays. So that is a busy time of year for reading and reconnecting and helping people get through, but we're no good. And then, you know, after, I mean, this is me, you think 2 years in a row now, I've gotten sick on the exact same date.
You have. This is
December 27th.
in a row.
Yeah. I need to send future healing to myself for next year for that date.
Non-existent.
That's such a good point,
so you know, and I think the other aspect of that is difficult for us to explain to people is if I say, hey, I just can't today. I am not going to be able to give you a good reading, and that matters because I'm burnt out. Something was too much. And even though we try to do our spiritual cleanup, we can't always predict what we're going to be reading the day before or healing the day before.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Jake?
Oh boy.
You said you brought up a point.
Oh, it's kind of like that, having to set a personal boundary for yourself, because it's like, you know, in your head from your repertoire and your experience, like, oh, I can absolutely tackle this. I am the one for this type of session right now, but I might not be in the space to do that, you know? And then I was always somebody early on that was like, okay, I am tired, but I can push out, you know, I can keep moving. I can keep rolling with it. I can do it. And then afterwards I am just deflated, like a very sad balloon, you know?
Yeah, and then spirit laughs at you like, haha, no, you can't.
Yes.
So have you learned to trust yourself more now and kind of know where your boundaries are to be like, I'm reaching that limit where I need to just take a break?
Yes. And I also know that I am a creature of habit. So every once in a while I will go back on my own word with that. So I have had to be responsible for the way that I make my calendar. I have to just space out sessions and give myself almost like that insurance.
Yeah.
That insurance period. You know, because you never know, you know.
Grace period, the 30-day warranty.
Yeah. And for any of our viewers or any of our listeners who are like curious as to like what this kind of thing feels like, imagine like you watched Marley and Me 4 times in a row.
I refuse to watch that movie. I am not going in that hole. But continue.
You know, imagine like you watched like Marley and Me 4 times in a row, just like a pretty sad but also nice movie at the same time, because either way, you know, the positive and the negative, it's emotionally
draining,
begging of you, you know, either way. So it's kind of like you only have so much of a battery to do either way, you know, so it can just be a lot. It can be a lot, you know.
For me, I don't know about you guys, but I get I get a headache. I get the physical exhaustion, and I just get I think you guys are the same way. I don't want to be around people. Like
no people. It's too people-y.
Yeah, it's too people-y, and I need to kind of be like, I'm good. I get in my bed, I pull up my blankie, and then I'm like watching my reality TV because that's how I decompress. And it's like, okay, I love Bravo, guys.
I'll leave you alone on that, Rachel.
Yes, I love it. But I just started watching the Mayfield Witches, and that looks very interesting. Anyway,
I go into my
Um,
little hedgehog. It's kind of the same thing, but I picture myself like a little hedgehog,
yeah,
and I just completely curl up, and I just want to be out about that much, just my eyes showing, and like, don't touch me, don't talk to me, nothing can
yeah.
be around me.
But
Really great.
also, like, I'm going back to the psychic hygiene. I love that term. It is calling on your angels, your guide, your team, clearing away the energy that no longer belongs to you, really making that energetic disconnection. Like Melissa said, doing the hand washing with the salt. I've never heard of the egg. That's interesting. I'm gonna learn.
That's
And
yeah.
really like kind of what is your practice to kind of bring you back to center and bring you back to self, to where you feel whole and complete. Because Jake is right, there are sessions that are really amazing and beautiful, and just that energy that comes in, it's all loving, but it's still draining. Like we're still that vessel, and we're still that kind of like, all right, it's a lot. And I even I don't know about you guys, but I've even started limiting the amount of sessions I'll do in a day, because it's just too much energy. And I'm not I feel like, that you see those like road, I don't know, like someone who's always on the road, like, that's not me. I wish I could be. And I get down on myself, but I'm like, no, this is not how I'm built. And we all work full-time jobs on top of it. So we're we have our human side existence of doing our day-to-day life, and then we shift for our clients. So it is kind of a jump. Do you ever guys feel like two different people? Sometimes I do.
Yeah.
I do, but I feel like as the years have gone on, I have learned to kind of appreciate that like two different sides, having
I
like
love two different sides.
a mundane 9 to 5 job. I can do that. I'm good. It's kind of like the unplugging period. I can just be Jake, you know, I can just be
Jake from State
Jake
Farm.
doing admin work,
Jake.
It's nice to be able to have that split off, because it's almost like an inadvertent vacation,
Yeah.
off days.
Yeah,
Um,
you're right. I love that I can open up Excel and do my logical spreadsheets and do
uh-huh.
my payroll and do my
And I also even feel like there's something to be said about like the balancing out of it all.
yeah,
So like doing spiritual work, doing this like high vibrational channeling work, kind of almost this like out of body experience, in a controlled setting, in an
yeah,
informed setting. But I also think that it's important too to make sure that you scratch the other side of your brain too, that the logical, the thinker, the stepping back and be like, all right, well, where am I? How do I feel? Where am I in all of this? Checking in with
yeah.
yourself there too, you
That's a
know?
really good point. Now,
Um,
I want to ask you this, Jake, and I don't know about you, Melissa. I am somebody who has had depression, chronic depression for many, many years. Long, long time. And I will say that being maybe shifting into more of a spiritual realm has helped me to manage it more. Believe it or not, it's almost like I kind of can understand like picking up on the other energies and where I'm dipping down and where other people are kind of, sometimes other people's energy will bring you in the hole,
yep.
and before I didn't know how to control it, or not control it, but maybe manage it. But now I feel like I have more tools to kind of be like, okay, is this, is it that? Do I need to take a moment? Do I need to breathe? Do I need to just be like, okay, that I'm feeling down? Which is okay to feel down. But how about for you, Jake? If you know what I'm talking all over the place here.
No, I completely understand what you're talking about. Especially from my personal experience. I mean, for me, depression always comes in like the 3 stages. It's the pre-burnout, the absolute burnout, and then the coming back up from it. You know what
Ooh,
I mean?
yeah.
And so when I'm in the stage of pre-burnout, I know that that's when I have to pump the brakes. I
Gotcha.
know that that's when I have to push out a couple sessions, couple weeks sometimes,
Yeah.
just because I'm just not there.
Gotcha.
Especially in the burnout phase, that's no questions asked, that I cannot be of service. So I will close my Etsy shop for a minute. I
Gotcha.
will, I'll put a vacation response on, online. But I also feel that it's really nice to, when I come out of it and I'm coming back uphill, it's nice to do that connecting work, because number one, you can connect with other people who may be having similar experiences. For
Mhm.
me, that's always usually my experience, is that you will coincidentally have people who are also recovering from burnout.
Yes.
And so it's a mutually beneficial experience. And then also you during the healing session, you're meditating to a degree too. So you are kind of nourishing yourself, and you are building up those tools and kind of getting back into the muscle memory
Mhm.
of that self-care, you know? And then even just the connection, the energy work in and of itself, you're always benefiting from it as well. So for me, it's extremely beneficial for when I'm trying to reach back out and get back connected and feel very grounded in my practice.
Yeah.
But I do also think that there's something to be said about our friends that when we do take periods of time off, that apprehension where, for me personally, I always have it's that imposter syndrome that can come up where you're like, oh, I've been on a break for a couple weeks. What
Oh,
if
yeah,
what if
I've
it
been
doesn't
that.
click? What if it doesn't click on my first time back? Or what if I'm rocky?
Yeah.
What do I do?
Mhm.
And then of course it's the irony of, we have to remember our tools and we have to remember that we're here for service and
Yeah.
that, our gifts are not just going to disappear on us.
Right.
Um, and that of course, and for all of our viewers and listeners out there, the universe is kind and understanding. And just because you deal with mental illness, just because you have worked through trauma, anxiety, whatever that might be, does not mean that you are not in your power to connect with spirit, to have a profound and meaningful experience
Mm-hmm.
in magic and energy healing, anything like that. Um, the universe just wants you to be kind to yourself and meet yourself on your terms.
Yeah.
Do what you can, um, and know what your limits are. In due time, that will change, but you have to be easy on yourself, and we have to make sure that we are not turning ourselves into a machine that never turns off.
I
You
love
know.
that. How about for
Well,
you, Melissa?
I think it's also a time for kind of just going off Jake, but that's when we have to turn inward again. We get and use all of this time to help others and, using our spiritual hygiene and our physical, like taking care of ourselves. I know I have to eat a lot of protein after I
Mm,
read. And if I don't, I feel those effects. So just, there's many aspects to it, but I don't have depression as much as I'll get a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
mm,
And even before my gifts came back out again, I used to have a lot of anxiousness. Well,
Mhm.
now I feel that when I have that anxiousness is because spirit or energy is just kind of like, hey, 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 you're on. We can see your light. Oh, you don't know you can see your light, but we see it. So let's
Yeah.
just keep pushing and pushing, until you do establish healthy boundaries with the other side, and when are you on and when are you turned down a little bit, because we're never totally off.
Mhm.
mhm,
But I do think that when you're in that space of feeling, it's time to be like, oh yeah, self-care. I mean, self-care, it's almost a word that we throw around a lot, but we don't allow ourselves to do it. And it's like, oh, seriously, you need to do that. Like, let's
You
just
do.
work, push, push.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I actually think it's worse since COVID happened about us having to, I think people want more out of you, and well, it's about me, so do more,
There is a sense
kind of a
of
thing.
entitlement of your time and this immediate expectation of why can't I have it now?
Right.
I agree with that.
But I also appreciate friends, family, clients who understand, like, okay, you're not feeling good right now. I give you space. I am here for you. And friends, everyone, when you're just like, oh, Rachel, I can't people anymore. And you're like, I'll zap you with some healing. Thanks. Uh, to kind of,
I'm your own personal lightning bolt. Thank you.
you are. So yeah, it's just taking care of yourself, and you're never disconnected. Like Joe Fial, she will show up when I get really cranky, and it's like, okay, time out. I just sit there and I'm like, okay.
I will say that I feel like I honor my self-care more now from coming out of COVID. And I know that when I'm going into a lot of energy healing or something like that, I do have a practice before I kind of turn on, and I will take an Epsom salt bath, and movement for me is really important. And yes, it's may just be sweeping and mopping my house, but it's moving that energy along and kind of getting it out of my body, and knowing that I like that you said that, like, self-care is not selfish, and self-care really needs to be a priority, especially for anyone. It doesn't even matter what you're doing. Self-care needs to be important for everyone. And if you can't, take care of yourself, I always go back to how can you take care of others, you know?
Yeah,
So,
we shouldn't be giving from our cup. We should be giving from the overflow. And that can be really hard to make time for. Like, you have, your goblin, mine is a responsibility goblin. Like, you should not be playing. You have work to do. You need to be responsible.
yeah, mine is,
So,
are you really on your path if you're not doing this?
Everyone knows like our buzzwords.
I'm gonna get a goblin, a troll.
I know, we need them.
I love this. It's the best thing ever. What do you mean? Anything else that we want to talk about? The physical and mental effects of the work that we do. And I also want to say this, there's nothing wrong with therapy. It's like talk therapy and going to someone to and it may not even related to the work that we do, just kind of working through trauma and working through things that we've been through in the past that, it's okay to come out of, I went through this and this is how I feel, and to honor your experience. I know, like I had a meeting with Jake last week and he was like, this was your experience and it's okay to honor it and it's okay to talk about it. Don't diminish it because of how you feel the other person went through it, but that's your experience and that's your, moment, and it's okay. And don't apologize for it.
Mm-hmm. I know. And that's my biggest thing, I think, for the past 2 years for me is like, don't apologize for how you feel. Yeah. Don't apologize for your limits, where you're at right now, what your boundaries have to be. Please never apologize for the boundaries that you have to set to keep your own mental health, to keep your own well-being, your own joy, anywhere, any far in between. And for all of our listeners out there, even though I do spiritual work in nature, even though, you might think like, oh, they're a medium, talk to angels, talk to all kinds of guides, they do magic and ceremony, stuff like that. They should be able to heal all this. Girlfriend, I pay a copay for my therapist just like everybody else, and I love it. And I truly feel that I have gained a lot of perspective and gained a lot of tools from that kind of help, from that kind of, therapy, from those kinds of sessions. I think it's so beautiful.
I actually will tell you that there are a lot of free college courses that you can take. Positive psychology, how to deal like childhood trauma. There's a lot of and that's just, in the mental health world. And I will tell you, those classes have helped me like kind of understand what I'm going through and maybe have a little bit more compassion for the other person and what they're going through. That's nothing to do with the spiritual work that I do. This is my own job where I've been able to take these classes, and I'm grateful that I've been able to do that. And they're free. You can get it online.
I will definitely say that from my perspective as a healer, as an intuitive, whatever you want to call it, I have found a lot of benefit from reading books on psychology, reading books on different practices, meditation modalities, journaling modalities, things like that. Because number one, it helps you understand your own framework. It helps you understand, where these thoughts are coming from and what purpose are they serving? How do I correct my narrative? Because again, just because we have an internal narrative that says a certain thing does not mean that that's our truth. Absolutely. And there's several resources for that. So you just have to make sure that you are watering your garden.
Well, is there anything else you want to add?
Well, I do believe that we exist on 3 planes. So when I took Reiki, I noticed that you blow things into chakras 3 times. Shamanism, soul retrievals 3 times. So it really made me think about that. And, we are a mental, an emotional, and a physical being, the conscious, the subconscious, the unconscious. So when we talk about being able to talk to somebody about things, that takes care of our mental. When we get into that visualization, like doing meditation kind of a thing, that's taking care of another aspect of us. So I do think that in order to really be good with yourself and to really work on like that hygiene, it is to take care of yourself in all 3 of those ways.
Perfect. Well, I just want to thank everyone for listening to another fabulous episode of It's Me, Not You, and we will see you guys very soon.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.